Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Shawna Presley Let's see. We've got audio on YouTube. We've got audio on TikTok. We've got audio on Facebook here. All right, we're having some technical difficulties on audio here where it keeps muting me. So team, I'm going to talk to the producers. If you are on the platform for the streaming, just keep an eye on this muted mic and see why it continues to mute. All right, let's talk about our show and what we're going to cover this evening. No matter where you're joining us from in the world, no matter which platform you're choosing to use, these are the topics that we're going to cover for tonight. All right, our political buzz story. Did Uncle Sam stop paying the bills? That is the question that everyone has. There's a lot of back and forth, and even top news outlets are having trouble understanding what is happening. We'll break it down, tell you what we know so far, and what you can expect if you are at all ready to be impacted by what is potentially a federal funding freeze. Okay, we also are going to talk about a positive news fix. It took a little bit to find one this week, I'm going to be honest with you, but it's there. We're going to talk about the disruption that is working successfully and why it matters. Got a lot of questions that are coming in. If you're new to the Political Fixer Live, please feel free to enter your questions in the chat of whatever platform you're on. And our production team is going to be working hard to get to as many of them as possible. And on the team side, if you are sharing questions, make sure you share who asked the question, their handle, so we can make sure to shout them out. Our third story on Political Fixer Live. Look away from the circus. We're going to talk about the story I think we should be talking about while we are covering the circus of who says what and what drama is happening in the White House. So we'll cover a story that I think people are missing. We'll also give you an update on Equal Rights Now, our quest to add women to the U.S. Constitution, and of course, some of our favorite parts, which is taking questions from you, the audience, and also hearing about the great things that you're working on. So make sure you get those questions in on either the topics that we're covering or anything that you have to ask. We'll do our best to get to as much of it as possible. Now, if you miss part of the show or you have to leave early, don't worry. After the program is over, it will be found on YouTube at Political Fixer. So you can find us on a number of platforms at Political Fixer, but you can find the whole show, share it with people. You can listen to it at double speed, whatever you need to do to get the information. And so that's directly after the show at YouTube at Political Fixer, the Political Fixer channel that we have. And then the other thing is, if you need to find us, I'm here. You can go to politicalfixer.com. That's right, politicalfixer.com at any time. There's a real phone number there. There's a real email address, and there's real contact information so you can reach us. Let's dive in. Before we get started on the topics, I want to go ahead and answer a couple of your questions to kick things off. AAR Winter says, I want to know literally, is there anything we can do? Who do I actually call every day? I am scared. I want to tell you your sentiment. You're not alone. A lot of people are uncertain right now and they don't know what to do. The short answer is yes, absolutely. And we're going to cover that in one of our segments about disruption, but also we're going to talk about some self-preservation, because we of course want to help each other and help our communities as much as possible, but we cannot do that if we are emotionally and physically drained. So we're going to talk about what's happening and how you can do things to, yes, help others that you care about, things that you're seeing on the news, do something about it, but also what you can do to protect yourself. So that's going to be our second segment that we dive into. That is going to be the positive news fix, but it is a fair question and we share that sentiment with you. Let's go ahead and I will say the person that asked about Guantanamo, we're going to cover that in just a bit. And I know that's a top question. We're going to talk about the immigration status in our second segment as well. And right now, Cynthia Fontaine, psychic medium, says that they have a friend who works for a nonprofit that has to do with houselessness, and they haven't been able to access their portal for funding. That is a great way, Cynthia, to kick off our top story, the political buzz. Everyone is wondering what is happening with federal funding. Now, if you've been fortunate enough to not be immersed in the news program, I mean, this week, boy, do I envy you. But let me just give you a quick rundown on what's happening. The House, the White House, for Administration 47, sent a memo about 2 days ago that essentially said that all funding for the federal government would be frozen. That is the gist of the memo. The memo itself was unclear. It was vague, and naturally, people from the press, people from different federal agencies, Congress, everyone had questions as to what this memo meant. Now, we weren't getting clarifications. We were getting a lot of platitudes. Oh, it won't affect people that need services from the government. This is just to end woke policies, not to actually freeze or interrupt the necessary services. It's a funding review. If you've lost your services, you'll get it back. All you have to do is ask. A lot of information and misinformation going out. But here's what we know. Regardless of what was said, again, judge not by what I say, but what I do, the funding stopped. And I mean immediately. Now, let me give you a direct example of this. When we're talking about federal funding, I know people that there's a waste in government spending sometime. Trust me, I understand that. However, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about a waste review. People were not auditing to make sure there were no $87 pens here. This was a complete freeze. So, for example, Medicaid, which they assured people would not be touched because it's an essential service and the money is going directly to the people, that Medicaid would not be touched. Yet, when people who administer Medicaid for the government tried to log in and access the system, similar to what Cynthia is saying here, that people in different agencies were trying to access things to pay bills, disperse checks, whatever it is that they do to supply services and needs, then the sites didn't work. They just absolutely did not work. Now, the White House said, well, that's just because there's an outage. There's just an outage. Okay, let me explain to you how we know that was not true. Because the payment management services website that we're talking about, where people go and they key in what they need to, and then payments move along the process, it had a message displayed on the platform. It said, due to executive orders regarding potentially unallowable grant payments, the payment management services is taking additional measurements to process payments. Reviews of applicable programs and payments will result in delays and or rejections of your payments. Little trivia fact for you, used to run a web design firm many, many years ago. I can assure you when a website goes down, doesn't matter if you're a techie or not, it does not magically show a message that says that you're going to be reviewing all of the payments moving forward. It doesn't magically happen the second that an executive order is signed, and it certainly doesn't tell you that it's due to the executive order. I know this might shock some people, but the White House was lying. So they shut down everything. Right? Then they get called out for shutting down everything, because it turns out that when you shut down everything, you hurt Republicans, independents, Democrats, people who voted for you, people who voted against you, people who didn't vote at all. When you shut off all the money, then it hurts everyone. And surprisingly, they got a lot of phone calls. They got a lot of really upset, really scared people in elected office. So to fix that, then they issued another memo that essentially was 2 lines that equated to, just kidding, we're not doing this. So forget everything we said. So the White House issued another memo, and it said, basically, forget everything we said. Just a big misunderstanding, guys. Okay, so we're done, right? We win. Yay, federal money continues. Not so fast. The new White House press secretary then sends out on social media a post that says, no, we just did that so that we could avoid lawsuits and litigation and the courts getting involved. We're absolutely still freezing your money. Okay. Just tell me where it's happening, what is happening, or if you prefer, just drop an anvil directly on my head and end it all. Like, this is okay. So they take this case to the courts, and different state attorneys and different governors' offices and different federal agencies, all these people say, hey, you can't just shut off committed funds like this. There's actually a process. And Congress controls the purse strings. This has to have oversight from Congress. What you just did is illegal. And the judge agreed. And so today, the judge said, no, you cannot freeze the money. What happens now? No one knows. What is the intention? Depends on who you ask. What we do know is that when we've asked 15 different people, they have 15 different answers. For example, when Stephen Miller was asked, what services is this going to impact? He said, none that are essential. And they said, well, we've been hearing that Meals on Wheels can't deliver under the freeze. Is that true? Refused to answer. They asked a Republican congressman, hey, is this going to impact the free lunch program? Because we're hearing that that is federally subsidized and kids that have free and reduced lunches will no longer be getting those meals. To which he replied that they should get a job and stop freeloading off of the government. You know, you lazy third graders who are hungry before gym class, what are you doing? Go get a job. No one knows what's going to happen, and the chaos is partially the point. Okay, so let's talk about what AAR Winter asked, which is what can be done about this. So the first thing is, if you are continuing to watch different press outlets and demand that journalists hold their feet to the fire and ask these questions, then start calling those press agencies and writing editors letters and sending information and posts on social saying what questions you actually have. Because right now, viewership is still extremely low. It has taken a little bit of a rise in the last few days as people are tuning in to try to figure out what's going on, but they are desperate for viewership. So make them earn it. So if you have questions you want the press to ask, start sending them that information. That's one thing you can do that is easy. You can call congressional leaders and U.S. senators. You might have someone in the White House who may or may not feel like he ever has to get elected again. The congressional races are about to start any moment now. Again, these people are constantly campaigning. And while a number of them are going along with his policies because some of them are in safe seats, there are a number of congressional representatives who need votes from moderates. And so calling those offices and asking them to be held to account for some of this, they cited, and this is a quote, congressional leaders cited their phones ringing off the hooks as one of the problems right now. So should we have to do that? No, but it is working. It is causing things to shift. And while I'm at it, if you'd like to, go ahead and call the Democratic congressional leaders and senators and ask them what are they specifically doing to stop this from happening. And we'll be talking about that more shortly. Getting a lot of questions all at once. Let's go ahead and take some of those as we continue, and then we're going to cover another topic. CJ Murphy says that portal was absolutely down. Yes, CJ, a number of portals were down, and also people who receive EBT, which is colloquially known to some as food stamps, they were saying that their payments were declined. Now that is anecdotal, and again, we can't get real information from a number of sources. However, that is what we're hearing. So, comment from Danielle, we need to talk to the lawyers about legality. Okay, I don't know what the legality is of what's happening. The legality argument about what he's allowed to do and what he's not allowed to do, that bar can move and shift based on who's writing the laws and who's interpreting the laws. I do think that's important, and it is a front that is being fought, which is great. On all fronts, we should be fighting anything that we consider unfair and unjust. However, we also should be creating political discomfort. So we want to make sure that people are putting pressure on those who know they need to get reelected and those who support these policies and get them to get clarification. It's one thing to say you want to reduce wasteful government spending. Are you on board, for example, defunding veteran services that they need? Because that was part of the funding freeze that was impacted. Are you in favor of ending Meals on Wheels for seniors? These specific questions need to be asked of these people on record. And Vix has a great question. A great point. We need to hold people accountable. It's not going to happen instantaneously, but they will yield if the pressure is high enough. Not all of the time, not all of them, but what is the alternative? Now, I want to qualify this just a bit. We cannot live in a constant state of outrage. It's not sustainable. Also, the chaos of not knowing what's happening and chasing our tails to get answers and is this real and who does it impact? That chaos is by design. It's designed to exhaust us. It's designed to distract us. So it's okay to be upset when you see certain things. I don't expect that you're going to be able to act on all of them. Pick a couple of things that you're going to follow, and then that's it, right? Like we can't do everything all at once. And so you've got to protect yourselves and decide what you want to focus on and what not. And that's where you need to make use of your time and practice some self-care. And we're going to talk more about that soon. We've got a lot of things that we're hearing. I want to hear right now from, okay, we're going to pull in this question from YouTube. Grateful63 says, excellent. I just called my senators tonight regarding not confirming RFK Jr. and Russ. I do not know how to pronounce his name. Is it Vogt? V-O-G-T. That's right. We still have confirmation hearings going, and I know a lot of us are working on that. In some cases, it will work, and people might change their vote. We did see that, for example, Collins and Murkowski changed their vote regarding Pete Hegseth. Did it end up mattering? In the scheme of things, he still got confirmed. It was a 50-50 tie, or it was a tie. I don't know if it was 50-50, and that tie was broken by the new vice president. But you know what? The alternative is not putting the pressure on them. We're not going to win every battle. It also puts them on record, which we hope at some point will mean something in the future. We are already at 17,000 likes on TikTok, and we've got hundreds of you tuning in from all over the country and the globe. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you're just joining us, I'm Shawna Presley Vercher, the political fixer. We were just talking about the funding freeze and the reality of what is happening and what we know. We're going to continue to keep an eye on this story, but the short answer, if you missed it, is there's a legal battle and we still don't know what's going to happen, nor do I think we really will know the true impact of what's happening for quite some time. They're going to continue to fight and bicker over both money and power. Now, let's talk about something that is going to sound like negative news, but it actually has a positive spin on it. All right. Right now, we've got some questions coming in. Let's see. Cynthia Fontaine is saying, hi, team. For some reason, I'm getting muted from posting live on TikTok. TikTok might be censoring. I don't know. We're getting a lot of glitches as well, Cynthia, but I'm glad you're on YouTube. We are on YouTube Live at Political Fixer. We're also on Facebook at Political Fixer, LinkedIn under my name, Shawna Vercher, V as in Victor, E-R-C-H-E-R, and then also on X, just because we have a group of followers there, and I don't go on there often very much anymore, but we're just trying to put the information out to as many people as possible. I agree with refugee GMA Jen that the Collins Murkowski vote might have been performative against Hegseth. You're right. It might be that they did it because they knew it would be a tie and it wouldn't matter. highly possible. They know how to count votes. We'll see. I mean, so far, we're waiting to see who's going to fight on anything for us, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's talk about a pretty nasty news story that actually has kind of a positive lining, and that is the story about immigration the stories about immigration that we're seeing right now across the country. Now, to be clear, the promises were made and were very clear during the campaign trail as to how this current president feels about immigrants, particularly those from certain countries, and what he planned to do about it. It was all made very clear. But as the saying goes, there is a big difference between expecting a punch in the face and getting punched in the face. And as much as it is an attempt for many of us not to get emotionally drained from the news, this is a very tough story to ignore. There is such a human component to this, and it is getting worse and worse by the day. Let's go ahead and set the stage on a couple of different things. The first thing is that this administration said a couple of times, oh, we're only rounding up criminals. We're only rounding up criminals. Not true. NBC News has already reported over 550 people who have been detained who are legal American citizens. We have been told that it only applies to certain people that are on certain lists. Not true. Not only are they rounding people up first and then, asking questions later, but by the ICE director's own admission on CNN on a report that was just shared with me today. Thank you to Heidi Torres for sharing that with me. He was saying very clearly, we're not only going to round them up, but if you're in the room with them, then you're guilty by association, and we're taking you as well. And there are also discussions now about rounding up Native Americans and considering them immigrants. If irony could die a painful death, then that's where it would go, because the idea of people from a colonizing descent rounding up Native Americans and calling them immigrants, I just cannot. But let's talk about the root of what's happening and where this gets into a slightly positive and inspirational tone. Go with me just a second, because we got to go a little dark to get light. Let me talk to you a little bit about sanctuary cities. Now, I had to learn about this. I've heard the phrase before, but I wanted to come on educated to be able to talk to you about this. So I was working with some immigration specialists and trying to make sure that I came on educated, and then I did other research as well. So a sanctuary city is actually not an official designation. There's not like an application that you fill out and you say, New Orleans would like to be a sanctuary city. That's not how it works. It's kind of an informal term that means that the city's government, whether it's the mayor, the city council, what have you, has taken certain steps to be more friendly towards an immigrant population, and that they are taking steps to try to reduce fear about constant deportation and harassment. All right. So what does that exactly mean? Well, it can mean different things for different cities. So let me give you some examples of some of the policies that some sanctuary cities have put into place. It's not a one size fits all. I'm not saying every sanctuary city has this, just giving you some examples. First of all, there's a lot of them that say we're not going to work with a government agency to deport someone if they have not committed a violent crime. If they're just someone who doesn't have certain paperwork, but they haven't committed a crime, we are not going to cooperate in disrupting their lives and deporting them. That's one thing that sanctuary cities can do. Another thing is that they can tell local law enforcement that they do not have to comply with reporting information back to the U.S. government if, again, it is not related to a violent crime. So this idea of, if you see someone who might be illegally here, that's not enough to cause them to have to alert the federal government. Another thing is that some provide different materials and resources for immigrants as they move into a particular city to help them start their lives successfully. So that could be information in different languages on how to find a job. It could be different educational courses that they offer at lower or no cost. It could be information about low cost housing that they can apply for. But they've gone out of their way to provide materials so that these immigrant individuals and families can start a living in a successful way in their city. And another thing that some sanctuary cities have done is they've made it illegal to build detention centers within their city limits. So you cannot accept money or a federal contract or participate in building a detention center in their city. Again, different for different cities, but these are some examples. Now, why would someone want to do that? Why would you want to have a sanctuary city? Well, the first thing is that statistically, what they found is that sanctuary cities actually have lower crime among the immigrant population. Now, there could be a lot of reasons for this, but as someone who's worked in juvenile justice for many years, one of them is if you make it easier for someone to get a legal job to support their family and themselves, they don't have to go looking for other ways to scrounge cash, which would be illegal. So that's one of the many reasons, is that these cities are actually, they reduce crime among the immigrant community. The other thing is it reduces this constant fear that immigrants are going to be deported. So why does that matter? Well, it causes higher attendance in schools if you don't think your kid could get picked up at any moment. It causes an increase in uses of things like hospitals when you have an illness or an injury, because again, you're not scared of being picked up. And it also increases the likelihood that people, particularly women, are going to report abuse. Because a huge problem that we see in cities that are tough on illegal immigration is that certain people fear going to report crime because they themselves might then be punished. Oh yeah, and it reduces the likelihood that human beings are going to be detained, distressed, harassed, or worse. So there's that. There's the treating people like people angle. All right, so here's the thing. People in the advocacy community, immigration attorneys, all these people that are more familiar with this stuff than I am, which I'm working to be, they started all of these social sites and printing out free flyers. I know of some attorneys that created kind of wallet-sized cards to put in people's wallets in both English, Spanish, and then some other languages that is basically teaching people about their rights. What do they have to do and what do they not have to do? If someone says they're from ICE and they bang on your door, do you have to open it? If someone says they have a warrant, do you have a right to ask to see it? And how do you know if it's real, right? So this type of information. And it sounds like something that is a drop in the bucket. I know that sometimes it sounds like these types of actions are so small compared to a giant government that is basically taking on this issue with a personal gusto, right? Nana asked a great question. Where can we get those cards? Nana, I am right there with you. I am getting that information for you. I should have it by next week's show. Not only where can you get them, but how can you print them for free and how can you share them? I am on that question. I don't have it for you yet, but I'm on top of it. And as soon as I have it, I will share it on politicalfixer.com or on the Political Fixer channel. Okay, so what happened? They started sharing this information in their communities and it started working. Now we started hearing anecdotes and people sharing film about ICE trying to come in and do things and then being foiled, essentially. A quick example of that is them coming onto a bus or a subway and someone standing up and saying, "Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know you have a right to remain silent. You don't have to answer this man's questions," in the big scary uniform, right? These types of things were starting to work and we were starting to see clips of them go viral. But how do we really know that this was working? Because the director of ICE himself, in that same CNN interview where he says essentially they're going to be spreading the net and they're going to just arrest anyone who's seen near someone who might be illegal, right? He started complaining that the sanctuary cities have immigrants who are, quote, too educated about their rights, and it's preventing them from executing raids and arrests successfully. You guys are foiling the bad guys. I just want to congratulate you on this. Like, already, we just got started and they're already getting frustrated, right? Like, this is amazing, right? And we're all just getting started as well because we're going to get more organized. And to Nana's point, we're going to start sharing these resources, right? So that's not all. I got to tell you a funny one. And then I'm going to tell you what my takeaway is from all of this. See, I told you it's dark, but there's glimmers of light. All right, so this second piece of the immigration story is about life imitating art. All right, so a news satire website posted a fake news story saying that the ICE hotlines that you could call and report someone who you think looked illegal, pause for a second and process what you think that means, that they were flooded with calls reporting Elon Musk as an immigrant who's here illegally. All right, now, this was a satire site. They were posting it to be funny. A little bit of an inconvenient truth. There is a very solid possibility / probability that actually Elon Musk did violate the law many times and for many years before he obtained his U.S. citizenship. There is no clear documentation or explanation on his pathway. Is he legally here now? Yes. But was he before when he first came here in the early 90s? Very hazy. Neither here nor there, but again, just process the irony with me. Okay, so this news satire site, they post this, hey, you know, they're getting flooded by calls. Well, then people see that and they're like, actually, low-key, that's hilarious. I'm doing that. And so people do start calling the ICE hotline and start reporting Elon Musk. And they start talking about this on social media and start flooding in real life the hotline. I want you to know that I called the hotline myself. I wanted to see if this next part was true, and I can personally verify. While we don't actually know the cause of this, coincidentally, the ICE hotline is down now. If you call, it has a recorded message saying they're no longer taking submissions at this time. Look at that. Look how easy that was. We're in days, and already disrupting. Right? Okay, so let me counter that, right? Let me just counter that and wind it in a nice little bow for you. A little bit more dark here, which is I'm seeing people that are asking this question. And I want to call out CJ Murphy is talking about this. Juma62 says, where are the Democratic leaders at this moment? Why are they in hiding? 100% with you on this. 100% with you. Chuck Schumer won the Senate Minority Leader. Again, the Senate Minority Leader, arguably one of the most powerful humans in our government, right? There's only 100 U.S. senators on the planet, and there's only one leader, and he's it. And he's tweeting things like, everything 47 is doing fits a pattern. He's breaking the law to rig the system and help his billionaire friends, all at the expense of the working families. Cool, Chuck. What are you doing? No, let's not even go into the deep end. What would you have us do? Like, you're telling us this like we don't know. What is the plan? Okay, on the House side, not much better. Arguably a little worse. House Minority Leader. Presidents come. Hakeem Jeffries tweeted this out. Presidents come and presidents go. Through it all, God is still on the throne. I didn't ask you for a t-shirt. I asked you to do something about everything, the dumpster fire that is happening, right? Also, just to be clear, you're receiving a government salary. You also have one of the most powerful positions in the entire America, and your strategy is literally Jesus take the wheel. Then why don't we just send your government salary to your church? Because this is nothing. You're doing nothing. Okay, keeps getting worse. Andy Kim, who I adore, New Jersey Senator, brand new. Talked about Andy Kim a number of times on this show when he was a congressman. He voted for Kristi Noem, the South Dakota governor. He voted for her confirmation as the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security. Now, if you don't know who Kristi Noem is, that's fair. There's a lot of villains in this movie. It's going to be more complex than the Hogwarts series to explain in years to come. She is the one who shot a dog in a gravel pit, just for context. All right, so you're telling me if you know nothing else about this person, the person who got annoyed and then shot her own family dog, you don't know if she's going to be humane towards immigrants? Cool. If only there were clues that could tell you. Let me read you some of the ways that the now U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security has referred to human beings who immigrate here to the United States. Immigrants she has described as, quote, dirtbags. She has described immigration as a whole as a, quote, invasion. And she has labeled immigrants as criminal aliens, sometimes while holding firearms during this description. Here's what Andy Kim had to say. I had several direct conversations with Governor Noem, and while we disagree strongly on a number of key points of this agenda, we agree that we can work more effectively to raise and try to address the pressing needs and concerns of communities and families in New Jersey if we communicate and engage directly with one another. He continues in his justification of this vote in saying, I will work to hold Governor Noem and the entire administration accountable to this, and I will use my direct line of communication to her to get clarity over their actions. Their actions are pretty effing clear, dude. They're pretty clear. To answer the earlier questions, is there a plan to change Guantanamo into a literal concentration camp? The answer is yes. Yes, it's real. Yes, I confirmed the footage. Yes, he has directed orders to change Guantanamo to go from a facility of 700 to 800 nightmares into a facility of 30,000 nightmares, and to deport people over indefinitely, with no plan or pathway of what to do with them next in Guantanamo. She and he have been very clear about what their actions are. I don't know what other clarity Andy Kim needs, but this is what's frustrating so many of us. Okay, fine. They're going to sit this one out. They're going to talk about Jesus taking the wheel, and they're going to tweet out platitudes about how awful Trump is for Main Street instead of Wall Street, and they're going to say that no, this time Lucy is going to let Charlie Brown kick the football. Okay, maybe so. Maybe you're right, and everything else we're seeing is just for funsies. In the meantime, the rest of us are getting to work. So what are activist groups doing? Well, Heidi Torres has been on this show. She has agreed to help us with a number of initiatives, including Equal Rights Now, which we'll talk about more later. But she and a number of other Spanish-speaking creators on different platforms are creating videos specifically to educate immigrants whose Spanish is their primary language on what their rights are and what they can do. So they're creating a lot of content. There's a number of attorneys and advocacy groups that are creating handouts and are also creating social posts and the business card size things, the wallet card size things we mentioned. There's also a movement of people who particularly pass for white and what we can do if we were ever present and we think there is an ICE situation happening, what we can do. So in the coming days and weeks, we're going to be working with this group and trying to figure out how can we centralize these resources for you. I will tell you, I found out about this effort today at about 4:30 Eastern time. So right away, I said, what can we do? And so there's some good advice that I cited briefly earlier that I want to circle back to, which is we all need to pick one or two, maybe three things that we are going to focus on and that we are going to try to help right now. We can't do everything. And I am extremely guilty of that, as anyone who knows me will tell you. However, one of my things is equal rights for women in the Constitution, period. And we're going to talk more about that in just a second and why with new information we got today. Number two, helping children and babies that are being victimized by this new regime. That's it. I can't not. And when we're talking about immigrants, we are talking about children being traumatized. They went to the elementary schools in uniform for a reason. If you're coming after babies, I'm coming after you. I can't not. So that's my second thing. And I think that this could help with that. And then the third thing is educating and empowering and connecting and emboldening as many of you in your work as possible. That's my third thing. Whatever information I can get you, however I can connect you with each other, whatever I can learn from you and then share with others, that's the third thing, because I cannot be everywhere. I don't know everything that you all know. You all have your own 2 or 3 or Lord knows how many, but again, please, self-care, not kidding here. whatever it is, I want to help and make it to where we're not all learning in silos. We're helping each other's communities. We're protecting each other as much as possible, that we're passing along tricks that are working. That's what it's going to take, right? So to disrupt, right? Like that is part of it. To protect is another part of it. And then to continue to do positive work while they're over here dismantling big, powerful structures that we can't possibly fathom the impact. What can we do in our own communities and circles and groups to try to lift people back up one person at a time? Right? It's the only way to move this forward, is to look for those small human victories every single day. That's what we can do, right? And so I want to take some more of your questions. There's a lot of stuff coming in. If you are just joining us, welcome to the Political Fixer Live. This week has been a doozy. We could probably go on for hours together if it were not for my own mental health of having to consume that much news. We're going to do our best to try to cover top stories for you, and always take those stories with the truth as we're able to find it out, context as much as we're able to ask and gather it for you, and then also meaningful action. And so what can we do about it together? So that's really important. And then another important part of our mission is to make sure we continue to amplify what other people are doing and other positive stories. So Trisha asked, did any inspectors general go back to work who were fired? For those of you that haven't heard about that story, there was a memo that was sent out that was basically, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say 16 or 18 inspectors general that were told that they were not loyal, and so that they needed to be fired. The short answer is that, as far as we know, there was one woman who has been with her agency for 22 years. She did try to go back into the office and said that the firing of me is unlawful. She was escorted out of her office today. I don't know the details of every federal worker who has been put on notice. And so we're going to continue to look at that. Right now, I want for Sully Austell did a shout out to AOC. She says, I feel like she has been pretty good relatively at being an advocate. Absolutely. AOC, Jasmine Crockett, there have been some rock stars. And that's a really good point, Sully. Thank you for bringing that up. There have been some rock stars that have said that this is not okay, and they have stood up to things. And that's a great point. We need to acknowledge people that are doing great things in addition to those who are disappointing us. But as a whole, I have not seen a plan come out of the Democratic Party. Now, let's give them a benefit of one doubt, and I'm doing this to try to be fair and magnanimous here. Elections are this weekend, as I understand it, for the National Democratic Party chair. So let us hope that whoever emerges as the new chair of the Democratic Party comes out very quickly with a strategic plan and some leadership on how to organize and advocate. That being said, not having a chair of your party does not forgive sitting members of Congress and the U.S. Senate from speaking out more ferociously. It just doesn't. So we need to make sure that whether it's a transition that they're going through, whether they're scared, whether they're just trying to watch it burn so they can seem like heroes after if they try to rescue it. I don't know the strategy. I don't really care. We're not waiting to be rescued. This is not a Disney princess movie. There is no Prince Charming that's going to come in and magically take care of the witch for us. It's not happening. So what we need to do is build our village and do the best that we can day to day to just try to survive this and try to find happiness and joy. Joy is an act of resistance, and also to help others as much as we are realistically able. There's some questions. Okay, so we are past 58,000 likes. That's amazing. And let's see, we've got some different comments on different things talking about Kristi Noem. She is a unique not so nice person. I will share that with you. Refugee GMA Jen says we need to take a breath and try to be mindful because panic causes mistakes. This is true, and stress causes health issues and burnout. Chaos is the point, and it's no secret as to why they signed over 200 executive orders at once. So it's not being lazy or being soft to just focus on a couple of things at once. It is really resisting their desire to drown us in so much at once. So definitely good point. Okay, let's also Beboop 1104 said Chicago schools successfully turned away ICE trying to take children. Yes, I saw that story. Great point. And that is a positive story, that people are doing what they can. So before we transition to our next story, which again, we're going to have to go dark before we go light, I do want to point out that there are people standing up, everyday people. And while people that we may have had respect for or had certain expectations towards or whatever the case might be, they might be disappointing us. I will tell you that old adage, that Mr. Rogers adage of look for the heroes remains true. And it probably won't be the big, powerful people. It's going to be individuals who are doing amazing things with their individual power. And there is a beauty to that. There's a disappointment on one side, but there's a beauty to everyday people speaking truth to power and to defending people who are defenseless. So we're going to cling to those stories. All right, let's look at here. Okay. Next story. You guys ready? If you're just joining us, we're taking your questions on different platforms: TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. But if you missed anything, don't worry. This is going to go on YouTube at Political Fixer directly after the show. It used to be we had to wait until Thursday for everything to get processed and downloaded and all this cool stuff. Look how the technology has advanced in our world. So now, as soon as this is over, you can share it on YouTube for free. You can grab little clips. You can snag what you want and need. You can listen to it at double speed while you're working out, whatever makes you happy. And we can still see your comments and things as you go on there. Our next subject we're going to talk about is a topic I'm now calling looking away from the circus. We had talked about this before, that we need to compare what's going on to a circus. Basically, you have an orange clown that is distracting. You've got other side shows that are coming in, like RFK Jr. and looking over here. Are they dangerous? Are they people we need to be worried about? Yeah, but they're not the problem. The problem is, if you're going to narrow it down and oversimplify, is yes, this is an issue, but the more this distracts, it's also taking away from other issues of scary legislation, of actions at a state and local level, of the stuff that's happening as a result of some of these executive orders and the legislation. If the media is constantly reporting on what's in the middle of the circus, then this leaves everyone else with the ability to pick our pockets while we're in the bleachers and no one to notice. All of the oxygen and all of the spotlight is going in one direction, and that is equally, if not more, dangerous. So yes, we need to be mindful of what's happening from the 47 White House, but we also need to keep looking at the things that are quietly happening and then try to shine a spotlight on them. So let me tell you about one such story that came to me today from a friend, she gets sworn in next week, a friend of mine, Coretta Graham, who is about to become the new president of the Texas State Democratic Women. Very excited for her. She's going to get sworn in next week, and we will be in Austin when it happens. I will be there to do our very first live training of Equal Rights Now and the Equal Rights Amendment, how we can move it forward, even during this administration, believe it or not. And then I'll also be delivering the keynote at the gala of the convention for Texas State Democratic Women. If you would like to go to this event, I've been told there are still tickets. Just go to tdw.org/convention. That's TDW for Texas Democratic Women.org/convention. You do not need to be from Texas. You do not need to be a registered Democrat. You do not need to be a woman. All you have to do is want to be surrounded by some amazing people that are ready to get to work and make their community a better place. And I'll be there. And so will Sarah. She'll be there with me. And I think Eddie's going to join us. It's going to be great. So Coretta called me and she was upset. She said, I need you right now to Google HB7. What is HB7? You're about to be sorry you asked. Okay. House Bill 7, a resolution that has been introduced by Representative Biggs of Arizona. It is at the top, sounds very harmless, if not something that we might agree with. It says, recognizing the importance of access to comprehensive, high-quality, life-affirming medical care for women of all ages. I like healthcare. You like healthcare. What could go wrong? Let me show you, Bert. Okay, it goes on saying women should feel empowered. We should be equipped with knowledge to listen to our bodies. And so as a result, they would like to emphasize the whole woman, including her physical, mental, and spiritual wellness. Ooh, spidey sense starting to tingle. I continue. Very next paragraph. Whereas healthcare for women, and I am reading this verbatim. Healthcare for women should also address the needs of men. Oh, there it is. There it is. And the needs of families. Whatever do you mean? Let's keep going. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here's the punchline. You can Google it. It's a 2-page bill. It's not that long. It's not even like tiny print. It's 2 pages, Basically, they would like to have a consortium of pro-women's healthcare centers across the United States that serve as an example of the high-quality, comprehensive, life-affirming care that women deserve. What does that mean? Did some Googling. Okay. So something interesting about this bill that I would love for you to take a look at if you get a chance. Again, we're talking about House Bill 7. Whereas pro-women's healthcare centers is capitalized, not hospitals, not clinics, very specifically pro-women's healthcare centers capitalized. They're being very specific about what they would like to introduce into the communities across the country. Again, did some Googling. What are they? Pro-women's healthcare centers. Let me tell you what they are. Their mission of the pro-women's healthcare centers is to partner with women to provide comprehensive, convenient, high-quality medical care services that empower them. It is to limit the need for abortion, to counter the tremendous push for abortion, and it is led by one of the doctors, a director in charge of the Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs. Okay. So we've got centers that are pro-life. They're going to counsel women spiritually on their need to think about the men and their need to have families. They're going to counsel them on that. You might think to yourself, well, I don't know how I feel about abortion. That's a complicated issue for me. That is fair. It continues. It also wants to make them aware of different types of family planning. They would like to empower a woman to understand her body's natural fertility with no damage to her health or her relationships with artificial conception. Ooh, there it is. The IVF they were promising to come for. Ding, ding, ding. Right there. Okay. You might be wondering, is this faith-based? I'm glad you asked. It turns out that pro-women's healthcare centers welcome collaboration with many faiths, as long as they are willing to cooperate in our pro-life work. We welcome you, as long as you completely adopt our viewpoint. We'd like to collaborate with you, as long as you want to advance our very specific agenda. Cool. Glad you clarified. HB7. Who covered it today? No one. No one. No one talked about it in the news. I found out through phone calls. What can you do about it? All right, there's a couple of things. Ugh, first take a shower. Jeez Louise, that made me feel gross even reading it. But after you have cleansed yourself and listened to some rage-inducing music to try to get through whatever emotions you got to work out after hearing this plan for women there and seeing it in writing, first thing you can do, talk about it. It's HB7. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be an attorney. You don't have to be a legislative expert. But what you can do is you can spotlight this right now. You can Google on your own exactly what I'm talking about. And it's easy. It's right there. It's HB7. Super easy to remember, as in 7 deadly sins. All right. So you can look at it and you can start creating content and educating. You can start emailing editors and local legislators. Hey, have you seen this? What's your view on this? Will you cover this? Will you talk about it? You can start emailing people on different national outlets and saying, hey, this is scary. Talk about it. Because traffic from normal people who want to see a topic covered, it will create news coverage. If we start blogging about it, posting TikToks, creating YouTube videos, doing social posts, say, hey, HB7, this is what it says. I did not take anything out of context. That line about women's health needs to factor in the needs of men is right there. It's at the bottom of the first page when I printed it out. Show people what we're saying and talk about it. Because if you start amplifying this, it makes it harder for it to quietly pass. I'm going to say this 1,000 times over the next 4 years. If I say it one time, we will not win every battle, but we can make them fight for every inch. We will not win every battle, but we can make them fight for every inch. So we can't afford this stuff for this stuff to go quietly. And this impacts a lot of different people, but also no matter what age you are, no matter what gender you are, no matter what religious faith you have, can we agree that having good medical care that just treats what your needs are is more empowering for women than having a center that is trying to program you to feel one way or the other? That is telling you that your duty is to create families, that spiritually you have an obligation to do something regardless of how you feel or your economic status or your physical status or what have you. Not to mention that we know that in so-called pro-life states, when you limit access for women to seek different medical options for themselves, that they are way more likely to die in childbirth than in other states. That OB-GYN care leaves the state and they're less likely to have access to any care because of the restrictive laws that it places on those medical practices. I could go on and on and on, but there is nothing about these policies statistically that is pro-life at all. At all, at all, at all. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing that you can do is work with us and any other organization. There are so many that are working with us on finally trying to secure women's rights in the Constitution. This stuff is unconstitutional if we are equal citizens. It just is. You can't create a law that says that I have to run my healthcare decisions through men if I am an equal citizen. Right now, I'm not. And if you want to learn more about this issue, I didn't know a lot about it either. I grew up hearing things about the Equal Rights Amendment. I didn't really understand what was in it. I didn't know why we needed it. Then once I realized why we needed it, I didn't really understand why we didn't have it yet. Well, thanks in part to all of you, and I specifically want to thank my TikTok Fixer family for this, for pushing me to do this. We have officially launched the Political Fixer podcast. Ooh, surprise. I told you we were working on it. It took us a while. Special thanks to my team, Eddie and Sarah, for helping us get there. Political Fixer podcast. You can go Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Apple, tons of places. We're very excited. Or you can just go to politicalfixerpodcast.com. And would anyone like to guess what the very first episode is that we took a deep dive into? Women in the Constitution. Right? Women in the Constitution. So we are going to make sure that we secure women's rights in the Constitution, period. I'm not stopping, and it's doable. It is doable. We are going to be traveling state to state and asking state legislators to reaffirm their support for women's rights in the Constitution, to re-ratify if it becomes necessary, to ratify for the first time if they didn't already. We only need 38 states to say yes, that women should be equal in the Constitution. And guess what? 83% of the country, 82% of all men, regardless of their age, their race, their income level, which party they're affiliated with, 82% of all men and 83% of all women believe that women should be listed as equal citizens in the Constitution. That's over 4 out of 5, right? So we know that this is an issue that we can come together on. Will everyone agree? No, of course not. That's not how life works. But will enough agree to get us across this finish line? Yes. President Biden moved things forward in his final days in office by doing what was necessary to say he believed we had already met the criteria, and it went to the courts. Right now, what we're trying to do is we are organizing. On the one hand, we're trying to create less opposition to the argument that's in front of the court, which is we took too long to get everybody to agree we should have rights, by going back and getting them to agree again. Removing the clock, smashing it with a hammer, saying, fine, we'll do it again. We took too long, we'll do it again now. And number 2, if the court doesn't side with us, we are building up political pressure, political power, and media attention to then ram it through that time. Because guess what? When it's ratified, when it has met all the criteria, when the court battle has settled one way or another, it's not up to the president. It's not up to Congress. That's it. We win. It has to be added to the Constitution. Now, this could be something that takes us months. It could be something that takes us a few years. We might have to weed some people out of Congress or what have you to make it happen. But the alternative is that we wait another over 120 years and we are still not equal citizens. No one's going to do this for us. So how can you get involved? We have an organization called Equal Rights Now. That's Equal Rights Now. You can find it at equalrightsnow.us, as in us, as in United States. equalrightsnow.us. And you can get involved and volunteer. You can sign a petition that gives us your zip code so we can alert the elected officials in your state. Thousands of you have already come forward. I need to update the numbers on the site because it has a few thousand. Since then, thousands and thousands of you have come forward. You've volunteered. You've signed the petition. You've offered to host a training in your area. Some of you might want to be trainers. So this is happening quickly. It's a big project, but it's something I know we can work on together and we can make a real difference. And we're starting by going deep into the heart of Texas, my home state, going back home and heading to Austin and working with those women. And if those Texas women are not scared to go into the belly of the beast, which is the Texas state legislature, and call back for their rights, which Texas did ratify in 1972, then we have no excuse to move forward either. And we are willing to go all over the country. So wherever you live, whatever country you are in, we need your help to amplify and support this. So I'm very excited about this. I see so many people that are filling us with questions and support and all kinds of stuff. People are sharing links. I love this. I see that people asked for the link to the bill text. Grateful 63 said, is it a state House Bill 7? I see Florida and Louisiana. Grateful 63, Sarah just posted the link under Political Fixer, but for those of you searching for it, you can do HB 7 and you can do BIGS. And if you want, let me read what it's called again. If you added women's healthcare centers, it would also come up. So it's BIGS, but great point. We'll add that. And I am going to be recording some TikToks about that this week. This, again, was breaking news, to me at least, today. I don't know exactly when the bill was introduced, but yeah, so that was a lot, wasn't it? Let's go ahead and take more of your questions. First of all, thank you so much for joining me tonight or whenever you end up watching this and taking time with us. I think it matters a lot that with everything going on, we're still spending time with each other and building community, and you still care and you want answers to questions and you're looking for ways to help. I want to stop and celebrate that. That is amazing. And after what we just experienced in this tornado of 8 days, 9 days, whatever, that says a lot about who we are And again, I know we can do this a piece at a time. Rain said, keep doing lives, please. Absolutely. We're going to keep doing weekly lives. We had to shift this one to Wednesday because we had meetings on Tuesday doing the work. But we will be back next week. We're going to keep doing it in addition to the podcast. So we got lots of ways you're going to be sick of me, not even counting the trainings we're about to offer. So you're not shutting up this big mouth Texan anytime soon. Over 82,000 likes. I also want to acknowledge the gift givers. That is amazing. I want to acknowledge the people that support us by being subscribers on TikTok. There was some uncertainty with TikTok. There still is. That is the next episode we're dropping later this week, talking about what's happening with social media platforms in more detail, what the truth is, what the context is, and then what you can do to protect yourselves and continue to build communities online. So that's our next episode of the podcast, dropping later this week, in addition to the one that we have on the Political Fixer podcast about women's rights. So with TikTok, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to assume that some sort of deal has been reached, and we're going to proceed with growing our subscriber program by offering more benefits. So we appreciate people that have supported us with trying to bring you this content. It means so much to myself and the team, but also we want to reciprocate by making sure that you're appreciated in other ways. So we're working on some things that will roll out with more benefits on the TikTok subscriber program now that we hope that we're going to be living to fight another day on that platform. I appreciate Cynthia Fontaine and Grateful and all these people that are talking back and forth with each other. One thing I love seeing on the community with Rain and with I saw some of our subscribers hopping on. I saw Divine AF, I think, earlier coming on, spreading some love and things. Oh, there you are, Divine AF, right? What I love about the Political Fixer community is when we come on here, then not only are you supporting what we're talking about, but I see you all supporting each other. It goes by fast on those comments on all of the different platforms. I've got all these screens going, but I see you all chattering with each other. Hey, here's this link, or hey, this is what she meant if you missed it, or hey, I've got an answer to that question you just asked. And I love that supportive community. And I'm excited to get to know many of you in other ways as we do some of these trainings online together, or I get to come into your community. So Diane, it's Lamma. Trump's wives were not citizens when they had Trump's children. What are the thoughts? Okay. My thoughts on whether or not they had legal status. I'm not an expert. From what I read, no, they did not have legal status. My thoughts on whether or not that should matter. My view, if you want my honest opinion, which does not reflect my Political Fixer team, it doesn't reflect any of the platforms that we work with. My view is, if you come here looking for a better life and you don't commit a crime and you pay your taxes and you decide to build a family, build a business, work an honest day, do whatever you need to do, then thank you. I personally don't care about paperwork. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a judge. I'm not an enforcer of any regulations. I think laws are arbitrary, and I understand that we need to respect certain systems, and I'm not calling for chaos here. What I'm saying is, personally, that's not my higher power. My higher power is not some arbitrary piece of paper that says who and who does not gets to fill out this form versus that form for what have you. I don't care about any of that. I think if it weren't for immigrants, then this country would not exist. These buildings that these men are signing these executive orders in would not exist. Also, if it wasn't for certain citizens, namely African Americans, that they want to completely silence and mute and say that they are the DEI hires, guess what? That building that you sat in and signed that order where you demeaned African Americans and their contribution to the country, it was built by African Americans. Primarily African Americans. So all of this, like who's here legally and who's not here legally, I don't care. I care about building community and supporting people as human beings. That's my job. Whether or not someone says that they have the right piece of paper or they fit the right description or whatever, I just think the law should be applied evenly and fairly. And if you're asking someone to go identify someone who looks like an immigrant, it's not complicated what that means and what communities that will target and who will be victimized over and over and over about this, regardless of what their status is or what paperwork they happen to have on them. So I'm not going to get caught up in the minutia of the law. I don't care. I care about how we treat each other. I care about the lessons that I learned when I was growing up about kindness and about, helping other people. And if there's a kid that's hungry, I'm feeding that kid. I don't care what paperwork he has. And if there's a woman who's in trouble, I'm going to try to help that woman. I don't care what paperwork she has. Right? And if there's a man who's looking for a job or a woman who's looking for a job and they need help trying to find that, I'm going to connect them. I don't care what paper. That's not for me to decide. So that's my personal viewpoint for what it matters. Again, I'm not an attorney, and this is why I would be a terrible attorney, because I don't follow rules very well. I don't follow rules very well at all, in case you can't tell. Not saying that you should not follow the rules, not advocating. Just for me, doesn't typically work out. All right. So I want to ask you guys a question, which is, you joined us with your time. You gave the most precious resource you have, your energy and your time. Was it time well spent? Do you feel a little bit better today? Did your heartbeat slow down just a bit? Did the panic attack stop for just a while? Do you realize that you're not alone? Do you understand that, yes, man, are we dealing with a lot, but we're dealing with it together, right? I need you to hold on to that. Because to think that you're by yourself, to think that it's too big, to become hopeless, to think we can't possibly make a difference, to think that all hope is lost, that is a weapon that is used against us. That is more powerful than anything that anyone could manufacture. I am not saying that this is perfect. I'm not saying we're going to win all the time. I know people are still upset with me because I really wanted Kamala Harris to win and I really thought we could do it and then we didn't. That's called faith. That's called hope. That's called trying. That's called positivity. And I'm a social justice advocate. I assure you, I have failed more times than I have succeeded. But the successes are worth it. And I can live with failure. That's my personal thing. I've gotten quite comfortable with failing if things don't go my way. But I can't live with not trying. I tried it a little while. I tried to behave and just be a nice girl who doesn't say much and who, gets along with the other suburban women in my community and doesn't talk politics. That lasted about 5.3 nanoseconds, and then I just couldn't anymore. I'm just not one of those girls that behaves. I'm not a lady. So I'll live with that. I can live with that. I can live with the failure. I can't live with staying silent. So for you, I would say, your boundaries, your safety, your capacity. I would say find people that help you hold that accountable, that check in on you. If you have friends and you haven't heard from them for a while and they are really strong people, check on them. Because when strong people disappear, it's because they're going through something and they don't like to reach out for help. Or they're working on something and they haven't stopped even long enough to check in. Check in on those strong silent types, right? Have your accountability partner that checks in on you. Make sure you do things that are important and that make you feel important and like you're a part of something and that you're doing something. But also do things that are stupid. Do things that are fun. Go watch that crazy movie that has it has 95 plot holes, and binge watch that reality show or watch that classic movie and just tune out all of the questionable references to women and other groups, right? Do what you need to do to get through this. There is no playbook for what we're about to go through. There is no playbook. We know history, but history is different. We weren't bombarded with thousands and thousands of messages at a time. During, different waves of what we've experienced in history, we didn't have something buzzing in our pocket giving us that update every moment, right? I see that refugee GMA Jen is going to go see Ani DeFranco in Seattle on Saturday. That's amazing. I see that, Cynthia Fontaine says she tried to be a nice, quiet girl. Ha, ha, ha. Right. It just doesn't work out, does it, Cynthia? I see so many of you talking about rain, setting up to shock and stress us. There's so much that we can do, but we can only do it if we survive mentally, spiritually, physically to fight another day. So take care of your health, take care of your mental health, take care of each other. Do what you can. That's it. That's all we're asking. And sometimes that's nothing but getting up every day. And if you need help, that's what we're here for, right? Self-care. That's right. Boots Canlis says self-care, 100%. Right? Now, I know people are asking, why didn't President Biden use things with like his executive orders on his way out the door to fix some of these problems? You know, why aren't Democrats doing more? Why didn't Biden do more? Some of this I don't have an answer for. On the Democratic side, I will be honest with you, I don't have an answer. And if you think it's bad on the national level, we could spend an entire hour and a half talking about how bad it is on local infighting now on the local level. Anytime you have losses like this, there's a lot of bickering, there's a lot of blame, all of that. But I will say President Biden did put together a number of executive orders to try to protect certain groups on his way out the door. I'm going to give you a very specific example. I'm not saying he's flawless. I'm not saying he did everything 100% how I would have done it. What I'm saying is, in this particular example, an illustration of something he did try to do. There are certain countries that we know there is civil unrest, as a nice way to put it, and that a disproportionate number of people who come from those countries are seeking some sort of safety or asylum. An example of that is Venezuela. Now, President Biden signed an executive order that extended the time that people could stay here while their paperwork is still getting in order, and they could be considered legal while they're waiting for everything to sort itself out with the process. All right? Venezuela was among them. Guess, in those over 200 executive orders that were signed with 47, when he came in, what do you think one of the first things he did was with those orders? He reversed them. So there was a number of things that he tried to do. And again, I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm not saying he did everything the way I would have done it, but he did try to protect people on his way out the door and at least slow them down. And they were ready with a list to reverse it all. Right? So I think that there are good people who tried to prevent what happened. Did they do enough? Kind of doesn't matter, because we're here now. We're here now. And it's on us now. And I know that we are capable of so much more than people give us credit for. We are capable of coming together on a random evening when everything looks dark and chaotic and surreal and is there to test us. And we could take some of the darkest clouds and then feel good at the end of it after sitting together, supporting each other, calmly trying to go through and sort out through this mess. What's on our own to-do list? What are we going to work on? 100,000 likes? Are you guys kidding me? That's amazing. That's amazing. So I really appreciate you all. On behalf of myself, on my Political Fixer team, I want to thank Eddie and Sarah and Jason for making this production possible. I want to thank all of you for being patient as we have learned this new technology and grown our platform. Please, if you can, we're trying to get to be one of the top podcasts in the nation right now. So if you can, please listen to politicalfixerpodcast.com. I'd love to hear what you think of it. This is a new venture for us. You can get it for free on just about any platform. We were very humbled by how many of them accepted Political Fixer as a podcast. So you can go to politicalfixerpodcast.com and it gives you all of your options. And I would love for you to support us there so that we can try to get more information out. And if you have ideas for subjects that we should be tackling on the podcast, please, we want to hear that as well. All right, we have done a lot this week, but there's still more work to do. I'm going to be creating more content on TikTok and other platforms. I am on Blue Sky now. You can find me at Political Fixer. So just did our first post there. So definitely join us on Blue Sky. And most importantly, we're going to be working to get back in touch with a lot of you. In the meantime, please stay safe, be well, continue. Yes, Boots Canlis, let's rise up together. All right. I'll see you next week. We are set for next week, Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern for a live. And in the meantime, you can follow me on all the different platforms, all the socials at Political Fixer. Be safe, everyone, and I'll see you soon.